All right, welcome everybody. Exciting topic today. You got the listing, so what's next? That's the question, right? The phone rings and it's the seller and they're like, hey, Matt, we're really excited. We want to work with you. Thanks for coming out. Boom. What do? You definitely want to be ready for these calls. And if it happens on the fly, great. Otherwise, you're getting an email and you schedule a call. The topics need to be coordinated and organized, and you need to definitely understand every single step along the way. So your first talk with them is about timing and getting this process going. The staging consultation for me is the first step. So I'll make an email introduction with my stagers and the sellers so they can coordinate a walkthrough. We've talked about what that looks like. That gets your house prepped, and we start talking about photos and a go live plan. I love Chicago Home Photos. They're my go-to. They have online scheduling. I always have floor plans coordinated with my photos. And you're talking about a go live strategy and what that date looks like. It's a lot of work for a seller to get their property ready. Don't think it isn't. They're decluttering, trying to make it look like maybe there's no kids there or they don't live there. Staging is everything. And we're very critical about what a property looks like when it goes on the market, because you only have one chance to make a first impression, and that is with your photos. So planning that go live and helping them understand what that looks like timing wise is a really important phone call. After you have those dates specifically organized via phone, follow up with an email and let them know what the plan is and give them a timeline. Everybody loves a deadline, and I've learned sellers love a deadline. So if they're running up against photos and a date that's booked, great, get it booked, and then they know that that is the deadline and it has to be ready. If it's traditional sale and they're not trying to time out a purchase, you're in a much better situation. If they're trying to time out a purchase, you're doing the exact same thing, but you're also getting this buyer out on the street and starting to see properties for their next home. And that timing is tricky. I'm going to discuss that in more detail on a call next week. We're just talking about the preparation today. So preparing the marketing material in the MLS listing is really important. I send a questionnaire and I have that template available for you guys. It's all on our MAR campus under the listing acquisition, seller acquisition page. It'll give you an idea of the age of mechanicals, what repairs they've done, what updates they've done, and you can put a date on those. Every buyer asks those questions. It's sometimes useless, but it's nice to have answers versus I don't knows. So get that questionnaire out to your seller. It also helps with your marketing material and what you're trying to present to the buyers. Be conscious of the co-broker commission in your neighborhood. Make sure you're publishing a competitive rate. I always draft the listing docs and send them via DocuSign. I send them in two forms. I send the listing documents and agreements as one document, and then the disclosures as one. Inevitably, there's always some modifications. So sending them as two different sets is easier to modify. And once those are coordinated, you're ready to draft the listing and get that going. Because then you have pricing sorted out. You have all the details about the home in the background and what you need to say on the MLS listing. I do also send the draft of the MLS to the seller for review, and I also send them the remarks prior to going live. You want their input. You want them to let you know and confirm that it's exactly what we're trying to portray to the public. We do use ChatGPT for some of our listing descriptions. It's been really helpful. Happy to talk about what that looks like and how that's worked for us. So we talked about why we launch midweek, Wednesday, Thursday. Explain that to your seller and help them understand your process. It'll help the entire situation so they'll know you're being extremely intentional about your launch date and the practice you're going through. I've always updated sellers every step of the way. If we're having photos taken on X day, I'll give them a 1 or 2 day nudge and be like, hey, is this still happening? On launch day, that's a really exciting day for this seller, and they're probably pretty anxious. Let them know the property is going to be going live at 3 o'clock. We should expect some showings in the first 24 hours, and we have an open house scheduled for Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 2, both days. We'll obviously be there to host. Make sure you're telling them all these details because they don't know. They don't sell a home. If they think an open house, they're probably there. If they're sitting there waiting to host the open house, we have a problem. So make sure you're explaining to them in detail what that looks like. A lot of agents will go live and they'll put on the MLS no showings till the open house. I think that's absolutely crazy. I sort of understand what their strategy is, but honestly, get everybody in. Make sure you're showing the house Thursday, Friday. There are some people that travel Saturday and Sunday, won't be able to show it, and you're missing a potential buyer. That's crazy to me. You can easily tell that Thursday, Friday person you're not accepting offers till Monday, but get them in the house. We use showing time for notifications and showing confirmation. In your showing instructions, please be specific. Let them know, let the buyer's agent know exactly the process that you want them to manage. If you're saying, hey, use showing time, great. If you're saying, email me, I'll respond via email. Okay, text message, whatever works for you. I've seen it all. I love showing time. It's the easiest platform and it does the best service for your client and yourself. Use it. You can schedule blocks of windows. We've done all sorts of things, blocking out nap times, no showings past 7. It's fantastic. It also does offer a feedback scenario. So they'll request from the buyer's agent 5 times or however many times, and you can automatically forward that to your seller, which is really great. If I don't hear feedback, I definitely ping the broker and let them know that, it's a professional courtesy to provide feedback. What did you and your clients think of the home? In the city, it's pretty labor intensive. We actually show the majority of our homes. We do not use lock boxes. So if you have 1 to 2 or 3 listings, you can definitely manage that. If you're in the 4 to 5 listings at a time scenario or category, you're going to need some showing agents. You're going to need some help. And I'm happy to help set that up for people that are in that category. It's definitely a juggling act, but we've mastered that here. Buyers that make an early offer and put a deadline on the offer, to me, that's a tactic. I don't fall for those tactics. You can absolutely let your seller know that you definitely let your seller know that you have received an offer and they put a deadline of Friday at noon because they don't want you to have the open house and they think it's a really great offer. Again, this buyer is obviously interested in your home and it is purely a tactic to help avoid multiple offers or any type of competitive situation. You can be collaborative with the buyer's agent and let them know, set the tone, be like, we really appreciate your offer, but we are going to get through the weekend. I've rarely seen the buyer pull their offer. They're just disappointed. So don't be scared. Don't be bullied. Make sure you understand that that's going to happen. If there's a multiple offer on your listing, the best and final situation is something we use very often. So you'll go back to all the buyers and say, hey, we do have multiple offers. We're requesting best and final by Sunday at noon, and we'll let everybody know Monday morning where we shake out. You want to be very transparent with all of the buyer's agents and your seller. You can definitely negotiate each offer individually. You don't have to let the buyer's agents know that there are multiple offers, but most of the time, really a best and final does behoove you and the sellers. It is blind bidding, so you're not saying, hey, you need to beat this number. As you guys know, the multiple offer really will give you the highest and best scenario. We talked about having a escalation clause, and those are really going by the wayside. I try and stay away from those. When you do have multiple offers, I like to create a spreadsheet for my clients and make it as transparent as possible and help them understand what buyer 1, 2, 3, 4, what their terms are. So you can create a simple spreadsheet. And again, I have a template for this where it really lays out the terms, financing, as is, any other things in terms that are being waived in the contract. So you guys understand what's really important, because it is price is obviously the main motivator for sellers. But if there's a post-close possession agreement or the seller really wants to have some flexibility on move time, that can move the needle. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 really can sway a seller on what offer to go with. I also do talk about the buyer agent skills, and if I've worked with them in the past and what kind of offer they put together, package, email, things like that. It really helps tell the story and gives confidence that we can get to the finish line, which is really important. If you're in a single offer situation and the buyer agent comes in at 90% of list price and you're doing a traditional negotiation, work with your sellers and help them understand that negotiations are very normal during this process. A lot of people that we're dealing with do not negotiate on a daily basis or even ever. Negotiating is a rare practice in America, and it's something that makes people really uncomfortable. So help lay out the terms, help your sellers understand what their end goals are and talk about those so you can get to that goal. and understand that if it's not attainable, that's fine. We can definitely get to have an impasse and move on and not accept that offer. There will be other people. We're potentially waiting for other buyers to come into the buyer pool. But listen, that is a situation where your seller is going to dictate. I always use comparables to help justify pricing with the sellers. I do ask agents specifics. If the pricing is way off, I'll ask them how they've gotten to this number, why they feel like their buyers are offering this pricing and strategy. I try to be as collaborative as humanly possible without, really putting pressure on the deal. Our goal is to get to the end game of a contract with this buyer and make sure that our sellers are happy. Okay. You have a property that is stale. Those are tough ones. You've been on the market for 4 to 6 weeks, and you're about to have the conversation of a price drop. It is not easy to schedule this call and broach this topic, especially if you suggested this price for the seller and you've given them a window of where you expect this property to sell. You definitely want to talk about absorption rate. You want to talk about the showings that you've had, the feedback that you've had. If there's any tweaks that you think can be made to the property to help showability and help the buyers kind of understand what this property could be, great. Definitely suggest those. But I like to use comps. I like to use absorption rate. I like sellers to understand that there is motivation. If you've been on for 4 weeks and you've had 12 or 14 showings, you most likely need a price drop. There are strategies in place, and we have conversations that we like to use. A lot of them are going to be around what the seller is comfortable with and talking about what their timeline is and what their motivations are. It's a little bit tricky, but most sellers are understanding that if they've had 14 showings and they've seen the feedback come through, they probably know it's time for a price drop as well. If you've been on the market for 2 weeks, I don't suggest a price drop. My strategy is always let the property go 2 weeks, let it run its course, and then start having the conversations, especially if people are really getting antsy. You want to let them know that 2 weeks is a really good time to let this property settle into the marketplace before a price drop. This is a tricky business. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Sometimes if we sell a property in 3 days, the sellers are like, should we have listed it higher? Did we sell it too fast? Did we sell it at a low price? No, we priced it right. We definitely had the right amount of interest. We had, 8 showings and we got 1 or 2 offers. That is something you always have to play with on sellers, and they're going to challenge you. And they're also going to challenge you if it's on the market for 4 weeks. So they're going to say, hey, Matt, why is my property taking 4 weeks to sell when my neighbor down the street sold in 1 week? So you have to be ready. You have to understand the condition of the home, the pricing, the neighborhood, location of the home. All those things will come into play when you're talking about price drops versus other homes. And again, it can be uncomfortable, but stand your ground, be firm. I've had so many price drop conversations. I really like to be confident in those conversations and not let the seller dictate it. Let them know the price drop you're suggesting, whether it's $10,000, $25,000, and why. I do update my sellers every single week. I loved doing it on Mondays. It was an email for me. I would let them know what the weekend showings looked like, what went on in the marketplace over the weekend. So if there were any properties that were similar to theirs that went on the market and are under contract that weren't the prior week, what the differences were between their property and our property, pricing, condition, etc., just so they have an understanding. And this also leads up to a price drop conversation. So they're seeing what's happening every Monday. They're knowing the market conditions. If you've had a property for 6 months and you have to be diligent about communicating with these sellers. Stay the course, always communicate with them. Don't let that go dark. Showing that you care is really important because you don't want to lose the listing. You put a lot of work in, and I've had properties sell after 6 months, 9 months, even a year. If it's a stale listing, you can also talk about other strategies that aren't price drop related. You can do what's called a cancel relist. So if you do a cancel relist, it basically means you take the property off the market for literally a minute or 2, and then you relist it as new, and then it'll hit everybody's inbox on the MLS search, Zenlist search, Realtor.com, Zillow. It's a way to refresh the listing and get a couple new eyeballs on it that may have seen it before and have forgotten about it or didn't favorite it, and they may be frustrated in the marketplace. They're like, oh my goodness, 123 Main Street. We've seen that before. Let's put our eyes on that again. That's a good strategy. I use it a lot. It doesn't always work, but it's something to do and something to suggest to your sellers to keep them, help them understand that you're thinking about them. So you get a contract and you're and now you have to go through that process. I love sending a really great deal summary email to the sellers and the seller's attorney. It lets them know what next steps look like, and it's an introduction to the seller's attorney. I love using Bell Shaw. They do a fantastic job of sending a next step email themselves, which outlines the seller's process from a real estate attorney's perspective, which is also really important. The first step in this process is going to be the inspection. And I always attend the inspection as a listing broker. It's something you want to be there for damage control, making sure they have access to all parts of the home, and just kind of hearing what's going on. And again, building relationships with that buyer's agent. That's really important. You're going to see these people again and again. Try to build rapport, try to understand where you're at in the inspection. And then you can also follow up with the seller afterwards and help them understand what happened that day and what we can maybe expect from an attorney letter. Inspection items are often a time to retrade a deal, and it's tough. Make sure you're staying on top of the attorney letters and you're understanding what the buyers have requested, and try and do some damage control and mitigation with your seller to help get through that impasse, help them understand what maybe repairs they can do and what they should offer as a credit. For the appraisal, that's a really important part of this process. We always send the appraiser the contract, floor plans, and comparables. Do their job for them. Try and make this as bulletproof as possible. They'll often reach out to you via email, so you'll have their information. Send it over to them, and I always bring the floor plans and usually the supporting documents to the actual appraisal. They measure this property. Why not give them the floor plans? They're going to like you, and it's going to make that process a lot better for everybody. That's the last step in the game, and usually you're working towards the buyer's working towards financing and finalizing their lending piece to get to the close date. We know that the mortgage contingency kind of runs concurrently with that, and there can be frustrations. If a deal does fall apart, you have to address that head on with your seller. Let them know why it fell apart. If there's remedies that can or should be made for the next deal that you're going to have, fix those. If it was just a fluke and the buyer flaked and that happens, don't worry about it. Hold your head up. Let them know that you're going to treat this as a new listing. Go back to the beginning. Start at A. You're starting as a new listing. You're having open houses. This isn't something you back burner and just put on the market as new. You have to give this your full attention. Your seller, this is their home, and this is everything that they have, and they're trusting you to sell it. So go back to point A, get it on the market on Wednesday, host an open house on Saturday and Sunday. This business is a wave of emotions. Highs and lows come with every high pressure sales job. And this is one of the largest assets you guys can be trading for somebody. So there are a lot of consequences. Make sure you guys are being upfront, personal, and in the seller's face all day, all the time. You have to stay focused and organized throughout this process, or things will slip through the cracks and you just don't want egg on your face. All of this is available on the MAR campus under seller acquisition section. It is a really robust section. If there's some things that aren't in there from today, we're definitely going to add them. I really appreciate you guys joining me on this topic. If you have questions, fire away.
Hey, Matt, quick question. The time frame for if you take a listing down and put it back up to get that new to get it to say new again, what's that time frame for
MRED? We do it in minutes. You hit cancel on the MLS, and then you hit new, and there's a few things that you'll have to populate. It goes right back up as new. It'll show as new, I think, for that's 5 days. It's a good trick. And it's not just the new tag, but again, it sends to everybody through those new channels of Zillow, Realtor.com, etc. Any search.
Okay. Thanks.
Jeff was in the office this morning. It's a great tactic, Jeff. Definitely, if your sellers don't want to do a price drop, cancel, relist. I love seeing them.
Do we have a way to share internally other than kind of looking at everybody's listings individually for everyone in the company, all the brokers in the company to know what we have listed?
Yeah, use our website, office listings, markallenrealty.com, hit office listings. It'll show you everything that we have. And you can also
Okay.
search the MLS by our office if you want to. That's also a tool we have.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Hey, Matt. So are you suggesting when you do a price reduction, that's when you're going to cancel the listing and go new?
Sometimes. That's a great question. I will say it's tough. I would say 60% of the time we will actually just do a price change on the MLS, because I also like that tag. It lets buyers know that, hey, fine, maybe we were a little overpriced. Maybe we were testing the market. Sellers recognize that it was priced a little high. We're doing a price reduction. Come check it out, because then it hits everybody's searches again. If you've maybe done a few price changes in the past and now it's time to cancel the listing and go up as new, I do that as well. I would say 60% of the time we use price change, 40%, maybe 30% of the time we'll cancel it, put it up as new at a new price.
Okay.
But good question. I do like the price change tag though. Lets people know you're being honest with yourself. It's a price change. And don't worry, sellers always ask, well, does that show that we're being weak? Does that show that we're going to get, kicked around in the marketplace? No, it actually shows that you're being realistic. We do price changes all the time. Let them know that this is a strategy to help get you to the end game, which is selling your property. A $10,000 or $20,000 price change really opens it up for a lot of people. There's probably a lot of buyers out there that are watching this listing, and when a price change happens coupled with an open house, buyers get nervous and they're like, oh my goodness, someone else is going to buy this. You've all been on that side with your buyers. It's a good tactic. Make sure you're using it. Even if it's a $5,000 or $10,000 price change, use it. Thanks for joining, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, Matt.
Yep. Oh,
Hey, I
Fadi,
got
what's
a
up?
question.
Yep.
The on the showing time, do you guys recommend having the owners on the showing time feedback
Good
and
question.
the listing requests when they want to come see the place?
Understood. We do input all of the seller's information into showing time. When we're getting the showing, the seller is getting it at the same time. My rule with listings, and I can do this because I have some fantastic support, we never miss a listing. I don't care what day, what time. If the seller says we can show it, we show it. It is really important to get everybody through the door. My old saying, even when I was doing listing presentations, was literally it takes one person to walk through that door, the right one person to sell this home. We will never miss a showing. And that is something that I pride and preach. If you have that availability within yourself, put the sellers on there. Otherwise, you could put the sellers on there and let them know when the showing is once you confirm. There's two ways to do it. One, they can get it right away. The other way, they can get it once you confirm. Both ways work. And then, yes, when the showing feedback comes in, I don't have it send automatically because God forbid something is crazy on there. We want to make sure we can filter that. But yes, we almost 99% of the time we hit send to the sellers as is. We don't sugarcoat it. So if it says, hey, that kitchen looked like, it was from the 70s, they're going to have to own that.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great topic. If you guys have anything else you want to chat about, let me know. And I look forward to seeing you guys all in person. Have a great day.